big video today. We're going to be ranking the top 25 most streamed rap albums of all time on Spotify. A lot of these are your guys' favorite albums, so it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. We're ranking from worst to best, 25 to 1. And let us know down in the comments, what do you think is the best album out of all of these? But Ant, let's get into this, bro.
Let's do it.
So we have 25 different albums. What's interesting is that there's a lot of artists that are here more than once, right? Like you have like Juice WRLD who's here with like 3 different projects. You got Drake who's here, I think like fucking 4 times.
Post Malone is here 3 different times as well. You have some movie soundtracks in this too. But there's definitely quality in here. And for the top 25 most streamed, I was surprised to see so much quality, to be honest with you, because there's often this narrative that, oh, well, streams don't equal out to quality. And, oh, well, you have to sell out, in order to make profitable music. I don't think that's always the case. There's actually concept albums on this list. So I took that into consideration. And by the way, guys, if you want to pause the video and go look back at the list for reference to see the streams and see what's actually the top 25 most streamed albums on Spotify, you guys could do so. But when forming this list, man, I'm going to be honest with you, this was easy money, bro. This was easy money. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I had such an easy fucking time doing this list. It was probably one of the easiest episodes I prepared for all fucking year.
I think there were definitely a couple like within that top 5 to 10 where I'm like, okay, is this one really better than the other? You know what I mean?
We've done hours and hours and hours of recording talking about these albums.
Not on all of these. Like, bro, we've never spoken about Hollywood's Bleeding. We've never spoken about this Kid Laroi album. Like,
no, I understand.
You know what I mean?
I understand that concept. I'm saying the ranking was easier, meaning that I'm obviously not stacking up Hollywood's Bleeding to GKMC.
No,
that makes no
not.
sense. And to be honest with you, the way that I dictated to the lower end of my list was, are these even actual rap albums? Because that's another thing that I'm confused about when looking at Spotify's ranking for the top 25 most streamed rap albums. This is according to Spotify and according to the DSP. I'm like, dude, like, is this really a hip-hop album? So I took that into consideration when doing my ranking. But how about yourself? Doing the 25 to number 1, what were the main things you were looking for?
Just looking for which album's better, bro. At the end of the day, it's like if you're a movie soundtrack, you're not gonna place high up on this list, right? But I'm surprised that Life of Pablo's not on here. Like there were definitely albums I'm like, where is this, bro? Like I thought that Not All Heroes Wear Capes would maybe be on this. So there were some surprises, but the list, yeah, like what's the best put together album? And sometimes it does come down to like which track list just has more songs that are better than another. Like, it's that simple. Let's get into it. 25 to 21. What is your ranking, sir?
All right, let's do this. 25 to 21. This is what I have. Pretty self-explanatory here. Number 25, I have Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone.
L.
Number 24, I have Fuck Love Plus 3 by The Kid Laroi. And number 23, I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Man Verse soundtrack. And number 22, Death Race for Love by Juice WRLD. Number 20, Beer Bongs and Bentleys by Post Malone. And 21, Legends Never Die by Juice WRLD. That's my 25 to 21.
You said 20 for number 22. I'm just confused. What's your 22?
Death Race for Love.
Okay. My 25 is going to be Fuck Love Plus 3 by The Kid Laroi. I don't know how you don't have this as the worst, bro. I'll get into it.
It's at number 24.
24, Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone. Bro, because there's still a gap there, bro. I'm sorry. 23, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse by various artists. 22, Legends Never Die by Juice WRLD. And 21 is Beer Bongs and Bentleys by Post Malone. Bro, Fuck Love Plus 3.
Like, what do we dude, it's literally a placement.
I'm just saying, at least Hollywood's Bleeding has, like, some moments. You have the Take What You Want with Ozzy Osbourne and Travis Scott.
But this
you
is
have
not a rap album.
A hit song like Circles. Like, you have your moments in Hollywood's Bleeding.
We've spoken about how this album feels just commercial and plastic and how it's just an imitation of the rap genre. I think it was Post Malone legitimately cashing out and being like, I'm out of here, guys. I see the genre going down. Here's my last hip-hop album. Let's go into country for the 2020.
It's still not as bad as the Kid Laroi and his vocals, bro.
1,000 Bad Times? No. Circles on here? Die For Me with Future and Halsey? Bro, what are we doing here?
Bro,
Take What You Want with Ozzy Osbourne and Travis Scott. That's a good song.
At least Post Malone knows how to process his vocals. When you're listening to the Kid Laroi and he belts out with some whiny deliveries, I'm all for you, waiting on you. Like,
he's definitely
he's definitely a much worse vocalist, and I think that's present on all 4 of these albums. And I think that's why this album deserves to be last, is that it's a fucking gimmick, bro. This guy put out the original Fuck Love mixtape, which only had 15 songs in 2020, and then had a genius, innovative idea let me add a whole new album to the original track list with a Savage edition. And then he had another brilliant idea. Let's make Fuck Love 3 and add this long-ass album to that original track list. And if that wasn't enough, let me make a new deluxe to Fuck Love 3 and add it to the original track list. So basically, this album is only part of this prestigious club because it's 4 albums in one, bro.
4 albums in one, he says.
That's what it is.
I know.
Though.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, there's 35
It's
different
disgusting.
songs off of it.
Imagine getting through this full listen because it's packaged as one album. That's why I'm saying it's significantly worse. Bro.
Yeah,
This album united all 7th graders who thought that their summer crush was their soulmate, and it wasn't panned out to be. That's what ended up happening.
You thought you were tough with that line, eh?
Terrible, bro. Terrible album. I don't know how you have it above.
Dude, I'm not gonna argue for a fucking placement, dude. I don't care. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack, self-explanatory movie soundtrack. Some solid songs on there, though.
Solid songs, yeah. I just feel like, bro, it's obviously overshined by Sunflower and that one song where Miles Morales is like jumping off of the roof. I think it's What's Up Danger or whatever. Like those are the only 2 songs people probably remember from that soundtrack. But there's a good Vince Staples song on the end, on the outro, called Home. It's just that like, bro, this album had no vision. There's not even an executive producer attached to it. Obviously, it's gonna rank low. It wasn't meant to be a studio album the way a lot of these
and
were,
I think that's why you look at this as a studio album experience. It feels a bit more like a playlist, and obviously, like you've seen different artists have to create studio album experiences that need to fit the cinematic value of the movie. For example, I'm thinking about the first one that comes to mind is Intergalactic by Kid Cudi, right? And in comparison from that, looking at Man of the Moon 3. Huge difference in quality, huge difference in the way that the album feels because you got to put it around the film and you got to make sure that it fits certain scenes. So you also probably have to make sure that it's friendlier for the families, on the outings and all that kind of stuff. So
I will say this: they've always done a good job of like making the songwriting pertain to the fucking movie.
Absolutely,
Like, I've always liked the effort with these soundtracks for this franchise. But yeah, let's move on. 22, I had Legends Never Die, and then 21, Beer Bongs and Bentley.
Listen, I'm going to get to Legends Never Die very soon. I just always felt like the weakest project in Juice WRLD's catalog is probably Death Race for Love. We spoke about that in different TikToks. So I think whether it's probably Legends Never Die or whether it's Death Race for Love, they probably have to be around this ranking or going into the next one.
What makes Death Race for Love worse than Legends Never Die for
Well,
you?
first of all, I think that you were able to see Juice WRLD's full-on vision with this album.
It's a posthumous album.
Well, not Death Race for Love. Death Race for Love is not a posthumous album.
Okay, so you're sorry, you're talking about that one being
yes, in comparison to it.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest with you, there's nothing much separating them. I always thought that Goodbye and Good Riddance was his most focused and his most complete project. Sounds hungrier than ever on that one, so that's gonna have a higher ranking. But you're gonna see this one come up soon. It's kind of a toss-up for me at this point. But do you want to go into the 20 to 16?
Yeah, I just speaking of another Post Malone record, Beer Bongs and Bentleys. Yeah, it just sounds like Spotify gave Post Malone a pop rap template that would generate him millions of fucking streams, and he ran with that shit. There are some slaps on that album though. I want to shout out Better Now, Rockstar, Candy Paint, Bitches with G-Eazy and YG.
That's why you probably have some of his most
slaps.
iconic hits, so that's why I had it at number 21. But
Yeah.
I think Stoney's a much better album.
Oh, for sure.
But
Let's keep on going.
Let's keep going. Okay, 20 to 16. This is where I'm going to have Legends Never Die. I made a mistake in my previous ranking when I was just speaking about it. This place at number 20. 19, I have Certified Lover Boy by Drake. Then after that at 18, I have Stoney by Post Malone. Wow. Then at 17, I have Scorpion by Drake. And then 16, I have Question Mark by XXX Tentacion.
Wow, you have CLB lower than I thought you would. Okay.
But look at the albums, though I have it in front of, right?
I'm just saying, I don't know if I agree, but we'll get into it. Number 20, I have Death Race for Love by Juice WRLD. That's where I ranked it, not too far off. Still really enjoy the album just because you're getting the most like rap-centric Juice WRLD on this album. There's a lot of rap cuts on here, more than any other project he's done. So I like that freestyle energy. But 19, Stoney by Post Malone. Number 18 is going to be Question Mark by XXX Tentacion. Number 17 is going to be where I have CLB by Drake. And 16, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon by Pop Smoke. I think that when you compare something like Question Mark to CLB, obviously CLB has a lot of its lowlights, but when you look at like the best of the best records on there, something like a Champagne Poetry, Erase My Mind, I'm always going to value a more complete sounding record over to something like Question Mark, which again, there are massive highlights on that project. There's X taking huge risks that pay off, like him making his own version of a rock song with something like Numb. Like, there's highlights, I get it, but there's a lot of interludes. There's a lot of songs that don't land either. It feels a bit less like it's filled with any direction, even compared to something like CLB.
No, but that's where I'm going to disagree with you. When I look at Question Mark, I think the intent with that studio album was to show the full range of what X was able to do as an artist. I think he did that, and he did it successfully with Question Mark. To be honest with you, these albums from like here to there, they're kind of all in the same category to me. But when I look at this as an album experience, what I liked about this is that X took risks with this studio album experience. He charted territories that not many rappers before him decided to embark on. It also proved that he was so talented, not only, as a rapper, but as a vocalist and being able to be a chameleon. When I look at a CLB, just my humble opinion, I think it's a good studio album experiences, but there's a lot of misses on that album.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that there's a lot of recycled song concepts like we spoke about.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that the originality factor of CLB was disappointing, and for the magnitude of like an artist like Drake, I think you should always be looking to push yourself forward on making the best possible product you can. And with CLB, I don't think that was the case, with the exception of maybe a couple of records on a very bloated track list. So yes, I understand. Question Mark still has that bloat. There's a lot of skits. There's certain things that don't land. But I'm going to give it the edge over CLB because it did push boundaries. There are huge standouts on there, and even something like Example and Infinity could stack up next to a Champagne Poetry, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So from a studio album experience and from the artistic value of it, I do put it in front. When it comes down to Stoney being in front of CLB,
No way.
I look
bro.
at this as being a pop rap album on the similar front, but this was actually a focused record from Post Malone, and this was when he was making some of the sauciest songs of his entire career. I think the tracklist is more focused. I prefer Post Malone's vocals on Stoney in comparison to Drake's vocals on CLB, and I think that you have less both on this project.
I think the production is way better. There's not a single beat that's produced on the caliber of a Champagne Poetry or even an In Too Deep on all of Stoney. The production absolutely wipes it. I think that as a rapper, Drake is way more interesting. The songwriting is going to be deeper. You're going to have way more infectious flows throughout the project. And the thing with Stoney is that I can look at Stoney's track list and I can look at CLB's track list and be like, yeah, both of these albums are fucking bloated. Both of these projects should have been trimmed. That being said, when I look again at the rapping cuts and the R&B cuts, there's not too much that's setting them apart. Like even a song like Big Lie off of Stoney, totally ruined by Post Malone's falsetto crooning. And I'm not saying that there isn't R&B misses on CLB. Look at Girls Want Girls, for example. I'm just saying that when you separate the highs from Stoney and the highs from CLB, it's night and day.
No,
to
but
which
the
album
lows,
is
no,
better.
but even at that, the lows are pretty low on CLB. Let's not get this.
Of course they
confused,
are,
you
and
know?
we're not when
The
I
hit
act like they're not
records-
low on Stoney.
But
Come on.
regardless, though, the hit attempts on CLB in comparison to Stoney, on Stoney, you have songs like White Iverson and Too Young on here. You have Congratulations. None of the hits on CLB are able to compare to those
What in
types
terms of how big they are? Who gives a fuck about that?
Never. When did I say that? When did I say how big they are?
Okay, so you're saying not compare in terms of quality. I disagree.
What song? Way Too Sexy?
Fair Trade is an amazing hit song.
It's nowhere near to the level of Congratulations or White Iverson. Nowhere near, bro. I am sorry. When I look at also the consistency of the track, it's got really underrated songs on here. Like, for example, hold on a second. Let me pull up the track list.
Yeah, really underrated songs. You don't even know them. They're so underrated, bro. They're so underrated.
I'm just pulling up the track list, bro.
Okay. No, but listen, Stoney definitely has its highlights. Feeling Whitney, I Fall Apart. I like when you get like that more raw Post Malone that is actually showing off his vocal chops. You don't get that on the entire album. But yeah, I think that CLB is standing above it. But you guys let us know in the comments on that one. And then 16, I had Shoot for the Stars. Where'd you have it? That
Shoot for the
placement?
Stars is going to be higher.
What did you have at 16?
At 16, I ended up having Question Mark by XXXTentacion.
Okay.
All right. You ready to go on this next one?
Let's
one?
move on.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so this is going to be my 15 to 11. Number 15 is where I have Goodbye and Good Riddance by Juice WRLD. Number 14, I have Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon by Pop Smoke. 13, I have More Life by Drake. 12, I have 17 by XXXTentacion. And 11, I have Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight by Travis Scott.
Okay. Wow. That's really interesting. 15, I have 17 by X. That's where it lands. Number 14 is Scorpion by Drake. 13 is Goodbye and Good Riddance by Juice World. 12 is Love Is Rage 2 by Lil Uzi Vert. And 11 is More Life by Drake.
All right, so not much difference in placement over here. When it comes to Goodbye and Good Riddance, I think it's Juice WRLD's best album in comparison to everything else that he was able to put out while he was still with us. So that's self-explanatory. I think it's in the midway of the list. That's why I had it at 15. Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. This is an album that I really value. I love Pop Smoke's energy. I love what he was able to accomplish before he sadly passed away, and all of the energy and wonderful production, the executive production from 50 Cent of making this feel like a really big moment, not only for Pop Smoke's career, but for all of New York. I think that's fucking massive. More Life at 13, higher up the list in comparison to a lot of different albums. I love the replay value of this. I love how good this album feels. Summer Jams, I've explained it so many different times before. 13's fair. 17, I think this album is super underrated when you look at it from an artistic standpoint, looking at the raw energy from XXXTentacion. The songwriting is beautiful. Even the formats of the song, all being super short and concise, like no filler on this album. I think as a studio album experience, wonderful accomplishment. And then after that, Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight, loads of replay value off of this track list. Do I think that there's stronger Travis Scott albums? Yes, I think there's 3 that are stronger, but nonetheless, this is definitely a standout for me, and that's why it's around that top 10 range.
So Love Is Rage 2 over Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight?
It's Uzi's best album, bro.
It is Uzi's best album, but again, you're looking at Travis Scott, who has the best catalog out of artists that emerged around the same time as an Uzi, let's say, and as a lot of artists from the 2010s that are in the similar pocket of like trap, SoundCloud rap, etc. I just think the production absolutely beats it. That being said, Love Is Rage 2, you could also compare it to like some of those big emo rap albums that came out in the 2010s, like the Juice WRLD projects, the X projects. I do think it surpasses those in the sense of like the production had those distorted 808s from the SoundCloud wave, but it also brought in something that was more colorful and more experimental, looking at a beat like Neon Guts that is so funk-driven, so spacey.
It's Uzi's most polished album. I think he probably took a lot of time with this and released some of his best ever records within his discography on here.
If we go song for song right now, Birds in the Trap versus Love Is Rage 2, what do you think's winning?
I think if I did a tracklist battle, I'd probably end up going with
Birds in the Trap.
Probably go with Birds in the Trap, but overall as a studio album experience, I love what Uzi did here. Like Birds felt kind of like a mixtape in the sense where you got a bunch of replayable shit for you. As a studio album experience, going through it, the colorful SoundCloud era that Uzi brings you into, to me, there's not many studio albums that accomplish that. And I think it was a huge step forward when you look at the Perfect Love tape and Lil Uzi Vert versus the World, because yes, those were mixtapes, but with this, it was polished. But you have this sound that is just unescapable. For example, a song like For Real and the Bobby Critical 808s on that, or something like The Way Life Goes, Neon Guts, looking at something like EXO Tour Life and the writing on, I don't know, bro. It's just... to me, I feel like it's a more complete studio album experience, but that's why I have them placed so close to each other.
I gotta disagree. I feel like Travis made his most vibey album with Birds. I think the atmospheric is a bit the atmospheric production, is a bit more impressive, and you are getting a more consistent track run from beginning to end with Birds in the Trap, Sing McKnight, and the instrumentals, again, they're otherworldly, getting the fucking discordant guitars, getting the crazy the progression of a beat like SDP Interlude, the mind-blowing beat switch on something like Way Back. I think it completely surpasses it, to be honest with you. What was cool about it too is that like his vocals took the forefront in that project, even if it wasn't as tied together as a world. But something else that we have as a big difference, I have Scorpion and More Life over 17.
Yeah, I could see where you're coming from with that experience. I just think it's, as a total package, listening from start to finish, I feel like 17 is more consistent because obviously the number of tracks on that record and how short they are. And I also think when you look at what he was able to do at that young age and how it just blew him out of the gates and what that record did for so many different people, the song concepts, the emotional writing, playing on so many different life scenarios like life and death, for example, and coming into as your own as an adult and just understanding all those concepts. For me, I value that more than an album like More Life or Scorpion. It's not what I play more. It's not what has the higher heights for me. I look at this as an album experience, and I think 17 is a bit more complete. It is more complete than Scorpion. There's no fucking denying that. But More Life, that's why I had 17 at 12, and I had more life at 13. They're very close to each other.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the fact that, like, obviously with X, he showed immense potential, and there's amazing records on that album, like a Jocelyn Flores, Looking at a Fuck Love. Everybody dies in their nightmares. Like, there's so many quality tracks. That being said, it's just like these are just like fragmented thoughts from X over like these raw acoustic guitars or piano loops, and I'm like, these are amazing fucking demos. Like, that's kind of how it feels to me. The potential for what this project could have been if he extended the story, let's say on Jocelyn Flores, would have been out of here. But as a 20-minute project that has a couple of skits and just very incomplete tracks, for me, there's been more replay value and just there's been more of an experience with the Drake albums.
Yeah, you could say those albums sound more polished. I think it's different, though. You're comparing an album that was probably still made in like X's basement in comparison to Drake, that had millions of dollars worth of budget to put into expensive production and songwriting. But when I look at this record and what it did for so many people and how it impacted that era, also some of the most iconic beats of all time coming out of this for that era, coming out of this this album experience. Like, Kendrick co-signed it for a reason. I think musically and artistically, it's on a completely different level. And I didn't place it like that because of the Kendrick co-sign. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you guys, there's a reason why this album has the acclaim that it does. But okay, let's continue going on with this. I believe now we're going into our 10 to 6.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting part. This is where things are going to get juicy. So at number 10, this is where I have Love Is Rage 2 by Uzi. Number 9, I have Heroes and Villains by Metro Boomin. Number 8, I have Utopia by Travis Scott. Number 7, I have Views by Drake. And number 6, I have Astroworld by Travis Scott.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Number 10 is Heroes and Villains by Metro Boomin. Number 9 is Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight by Travis Scott. Number 8 is Utopia by Travis Scott. Number 7 is Astroworld by Travis Scott. And number 6, Views by Drake.
Okay, so we have everything categorized in the same ranking kind of over here. Just a couple of different albums placed on top of each other that are different. When I look at Heroes and Villains, the reason why I had it over Birds, because I was looking at Love Is Rage 2, Heroes, and Birds. That's the way that I categorized them. I think Heroes and Villains has better production than Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight.
Debatable.
I prefer the excitement that Heroes and Villains has. So, for example, like Future's performance on a superhero, looking at what 21 Savage was able to do on Umbrella, even the Travis cuts, like a Niagara Falls, for example. Love that record. Feel the Fire, which is the outro of that album. I love what they were able to do with Takeoff and with A$AP Rocky with that soul sample flip. I think that there was a lot of things that pushed the trap genre forward with this album too. It came out of stale time for the trap genre, and I feel like it kind of revitalized everything, where you were getting a lot of stale records that sounded either outdated or felt like rappers were just putting them out for the sake of commercial success. With this, there was cinema. There was also this beautiful storyline that was woven into the album where, you had the narration going on. I really felt like this was a top tier album for Metro Boomin, and the replay value is just as good as Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight to me.
I think a more interesting debate, though, is Astroworld versus Views, because we had those at separate placements, and I think that it's easy to argue for both. The reason why I think Views is a better album than Astroworld is because on both of those albums, you're getting both Drake and Travis at their best. And I think that as performers, when you're looking at both of them at their best, Drake is a better singer and better crooner, as well as him being a better rapper than Travis Scott. So when I'm looking at that side of things, I think that you're finding way more in terms of an MC from Drake on Views compared to Travis on Astroworld. And obviously the big argument with Astroworld is the production. And I think that people tend to sleep on a lot of the best production and the best instrumentals on Views, looking at what Manish was able to do in this project on a song like Keep the Family Close, where you're getting this incredible orchestral-based instrumental and those stabs of percussion that are so theatrical. People forget about like the real live music that went into so many songs off of Views. And also, and when it comes to just like songwriting and like feeling out where the artist is, sure, you have Coffee Bean and Stop Trying to Be God, but it doesn't compare to the amount of tracks where Drake is really just telling you where he's at with these different life situations. So for me, I just feel like Drake had a bit more to offer with Views, and it was also tied into a world and a concept the way that Astroworld was.
Yeah,
too.
but I think that's where it gets it for me, is that the Astroworld track list kind of builds World better to me when it comes to like what you're able to get immersed into and what you're able to kind of feel as a listener, right? Because they play on very similar fields when you look at these albums for their own respective catalogs, right? Drake is bringing you back to Toronto. Views from the Six was the original tracklist name.
And there's the progression, right?
Of course,
like,
but I could say the same thing for Astroworld, where it feels like you're going back to Houston, the Travis Scott's favorite amusement park, which was Astroworld, that was powered by Six Flags back in the day, and now you're on this roller coaster ride with him, and you're going through all of his life experiences. When it comes to production, yes, I love the production off of Views. I just think Astroworld is a lot more dynamic as far as a track list goes when it comes to these productions. For example, all of the beat switches, looking at the 3 different beat switches on Sicko Mode, looking at the beat switch on something like, for example, Stargazing. I also think you're getting a bit more raw aggression and energy out of this track list. For example, songs like No Bystanders or A Carousel. I think the feature list is stronger. Looking at what Stevie Wonder was able to do, having James Blake on here, having someone like Frank Ocean, getting all of these incredible artists to come together for a full studio album experience. I think there's a better intro on the album and a better outro on the album. For me, I would take Stargazing as the best intro as far as both these albums go, and I would take Coffee Bean as the best outro.
that's 2 songs in the album, though. I'm not going to make an argument.
But regardless,
off of that.
though, it's still something I looked at.
That being said, the whole dynamic production thing, I want to counter that just because, I mean, sure, beat switch is a cool argument, but to me, that doesn't make a beat dynamic. There's more, a soundscape dynamic. Like, looking at Views, you have Drake getting a neo soul based production with a crazy bass line on something like Summer Is Over interlude, and then you have a more trap oriented cut on something like Grammys, and then you have an intro which is orchestral classical music playing out that you would find in a fucking opera house or something. So just to say, I think that there is dynamic in the sense of different styles, even looking at the Afro beats of something like Controlla. So
yeah, but I could say this. I can make that same argument though for Astroworld, where you have more of that boom bap esque production off of Coffee Bean, and then you look at something like R.I.P. Screw that feels a lot more psychedelic, and then you get those Mike Dean synths sprinkled out all throughout.
Yeah,
that
but
production,
it's kind of it's all in the realm of like psychedelic trap mostly.
Yes, but think about what Astroworld did for that subgenre.
For
like,
sure.
This was. I think this is one of the best produced albums of that entire decade when you really want to look at it.
Should we do the track v track for fun?
Yeah, let's do it. Fucking pull it up. Let's do it.
Let's go.
I'm interested to see where this goes. All right.
Keep the family close, Stargazing.
I go Stargazing.
I'm going
Come on, bro.
I go Stargazing. 9.
Carousel. Go
Going 9. Are you with me?
Sicko Mode. I go Sicko Mode.
I go Sicko Mode. Feel No Ways.
R.I.P. Screw. R.I.P. Screw.
Feel No Ways. Hype.
Actually, no. Feel No Ways too. My bad.
Hype.
Stop Trying to Be God. Stop trying to be
God. Western Road Flows.
No Bystanders.
Going Western Road Flows.
3-3.
Redemption.
Skeletons. We gotta go Skeletons here. Sorry.
Yeah. With You.
Wake Up.
I'm gonna go Wake Up.
I'm gonna go Wake Up.
Faithful.
5%.
I go Faithful.
Faithful.
That's 5-4. Still Here.
NC-17.
Go Still Here.
I'm gonna go NC-17.
Over Still Here?
Yeah, I'm not that big on Still Here.
Oh my god, terrible. Okay, Controlla.
Astro Thunder. Going Astro Thunder.
I gotta go Controlla. One Dance.
Yosemite. One Dance.
Yeah, I have 7-5 Grammys.
Can't say for sure.
Can't say. Child's Play.
Who what? Child's Play.
Yeah, I have 8-6 Pop Style.
Butterfly Effect.
Yeah. Okay, Too Good.
Houston Fornication.
Over Too Good. Yeah. Okay, 8-8. Summer's Over interlude.
Coffee Bean.
Neck and Neck.
Just say I got it.
Neck and Neck. No, but you're forgetting some of the best songs off this album at the end. You have Fire and Desire and Views. So again, Neck and Neck. But good debate. I enjoyed that one. Anything else within this range you want to talk about, or
I'm
move
cool
on?
on everything. We kind of have the same albums everywhere on this one.
So 5-1.
But this one should be predictable since we've ranked all of these albums. So number 5, this is where I'm gonna have Damn by Kendrick Lamar. Number 4, I'm gonna have 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. Number 3, I'm gonna have The Eminem Show by Eminem. Number 2, I'm gonna have Graduation by Kanye West, and number 1, it's gonna be GKMC.
You could double that down for me.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's the exact same, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any debate anyway.
I want to ask you this. Like, some people, I think, would make the argument for the Eminem Show maybe being a better album than Graduation. I think they would argue just like the rapping performances. But what kind of puts it over the edge for you?
Oh, the production.
Yeah.
For sure, the production, bro. The production, even the rapping performances. Yeah, I get there's a lot of wonderful rapping performances like White America, something like Business, looking at Without Me, Sing for the Moment,
stops.
Till I Collapse. Stupid rapping performances all the way throughout it. But when I look at Graduation, as far as the studio album experiences go, like entering a universe, like you're walking into this universe and now you got to be immersed into this. It's out of here, bro. Like, this is the peak of Kanye West's artistry. Arguably, this is a top 3 album in one of the most goated catalogs of all time. It was a part of a crazy album run. And even at that, to say that Kanye doesn't have great rapping performances, to me would be kind of idiotic. Looking at something like Good Morning or I Can't Tell Me Nothing or A Big Brother, there's just the glory, dude. Homecoming. It felt,
100%.
and the track list is also a bit more focused topically when I go into it, right? You got Chicago, you got Kanye West going back to Chicago, paying tribute to everything that the city has to offer him in his personal life and also artistically. Him talking about that in Homecoming to me was one of the biggest highlights of that studio album.
And even him
Yeah,
like
for sure.
reflecting on everything I am about like being away from Chicago and like being devastated by all the killings that are taking place and sort of having that little feeling of survivor's guilt, even if he doesn't explicitly say it.
For sure, and I also
Um,
listen. I love the triumphant production on something like the Eminem Show, whether it's the drums on "Till I Collapse" or whether it's that Dr. Dre production on something like "Business." But looking at the sample flips on this fucking album, it's stupid, bro. Like the "I Wonder" sample flip might be one of the greatest hip hop sample flips of all time, or even like the glistening synths on something like "Flashing Lights." That's stupid. I think that it really pushed hip hop forward, and also it marked a new era for hip hop, where now we were going into this direction.
100%.
We were able to do something new and refreshing that was never seen before, and you hear how many artists pay homage to Graduation for their own studio albums now.
Oh, totally. And I just also think that like you were saying, when you go into Graduation, it's a continuous sonic experience where every beat has that glamorous and futuristic sort of sound that again continues from beginning to end. I'm not knocking the production on the Eminem Show, but you're looking at a lot of hardcore drums from Dr. Dre, a lot of guitar loops. You're looking at sort of like a formula that isn't as exciting or isn't as daring and ambitious as sampling Daft Punk and making that a massive global song like he did with Stronger, for example. And I also think that Graduation is just more timeless in terms of the types of synth lines being used, in terms of like the messages. And if you want to talk about artist performance for artist performance, sure, Kanye doesn't have the technicalities, but he has the charisma, he has the hook game on lock, he has the
No,
quotables.
listen, I will say this. I give Eminem the artist performance when
He
it comes
does,
to...
but I'm
even
just
some of the
saying.
most
I'm saying
iconic
what I'm
hip-hop
saying is
hooks
that
of all time
Kanye
came out of
strives.
there.
Kanye strives in different areas as an MC on this album to keep you entertained and
For sure,
engaged.
it's a very passionate and personal performance from Kanye because he really wants to show you it. But I mean, from Eminem, from the Eminem Show, even when I look at the lows versus the lows, because that's what I was really debating here, right? These albums could be neck and neck for me. You know how I feel about Square Dance. You know how I feel about My Dad's Gone Crazy. If I put that up against, let's say, something like Drunken Hot Girls or Barry Bonds, those are much better records than those.
Yeah.
So the tracklist consistency, the world building, the production, the personal touch to the track list, and just how avant-garde that album was, I have it in front. When it comes to 2014 over Damn, I think we've spoken about this in depth, but I don't know, bro. This track list is just so fucking strong, bro. It's really fucking strong. And yes, I understand people might argue that the writing's a bit more intricate on something like that because of the connective tissue from Duckworth going into Blood, and then after that, the whole chronological order being flipped. But sometimes the bells and whistles won't necessarily make me gravitate all the way with it.
For sure.
That's the way that I kind of saw it looking at 2014. There's a real narrative and there's a world building experience when you enter that, right?
And there's a narrative with
sure.
Damn too. I don't want to say that there isn't a narrative.
I know,
there.
but what I'm saying is that people might look at 2014 as, oh, there's just a bunch of commercial hits, like personal writing cuts. Maybe there's not the most to the track sequencing. But I actually did a breakdown on this album maybe back in 2022 on TikTok where you start off literally at J. Cole's birth on January 28th. You see how he progresses as a human being and the way that he's able to live out his life and what makes him a man in this world. He finally hits his peak at No Role Models fame-wise, and then everything else bleeds into Love Yours, which is this beautiful and deep personal cut about appreciating the small things in your life because that's what really matters. So for me, like, it does the same thing as Damn does, just Damn's maybe a bit more intricate and complicated to get into.
Yeah, and
So-
I was also looking just at like some of the lowlights on Damn, looking at let's say a God or a Loyalty, and comparing that to 2014, and I feel like maybe
There's a bit more of a pop appeal with Damn.
yeah, there is. I mean, listen, these are neck and neck though. I think you can make the argument either way, and then we got to talk about number one. It is obviously a big talking point for this entire list is what is the best popular album, let's say, on streaming.
It's Good Kid,
It's Good Kid, Mad City, and I've always said that I think this album did the best juggling job of having that commercial appeal while also having a full-on story album from beginning to end that you could watch along like a movie, scene after scene. Timeless records throughout it. The best rapping performance out of any other album here. We've
Arguably a
spoken
top
about it
10
million
rap album
times.
of all time.
Yeah.
Arguably the best album and the most goated catalog of all time. I still have to put a butterfly over it, but regardless, though, GKMC is definitely
It's the one.
number one. Yeah, I started the list off of GKMC and Graduation.
Yeah.
Actually, the way that I
Easy.
did it was GKMC, Graduation, the Eminem Show. I already knew my ranking for that, and then I had to do a couple of debates, but I knew I had 2014 over Damp because of the rankings that we initially did. And then the middle of the list was a bit more of the difficult situation because then like I was looking at Birds, Love Is Rage 2 and Heroes, and I'm like, okay, like what really separates these albums? But when it came to the 8 to 6 as well, that was pretty simple for me. But overall, guys, I hope you enjoyed our list. Let us know in the comment section. Besides GKMC, let's do this. Besides GKMC, what is the best album you see out of these 25 albums? It's a pleasure making content for you guys. So if you want to stay up to date with our entire release schedule, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, guys, because we're uploading on here on a weekly basis. Much love to everyone, and we will catch you next week. Peace.